Hey, so today we're going to be making apricot wine accompanied by my favorite classical piece, Blue Danube by Johann Strauss. So my grandma asked me this year if I wanted any apricots, and I said absolutely, I would love to make some wine. So she ended up giving me quite a few. We can see here that I went ahead and took the pits out of each one of them and ended up with about 4.3 kilograms of apricots. So I think what I'll do is end up taking the pits and trying to start some saplings and maybe start growing some trees and have my own apricot trees. That'll be definitely for a later project though. So we're going to continue just mashing down all the apricot material so that we can put it in the wine later. We're going to start by boiling I think about 3 gallons of water. We're going to go ahead and put the apricot gel at this point into a flour sack sort of bag that we will go ahead and drop into the water so that we have our must. After about 30 minutes of steeping, went ahead and gave it a little bit of a stir. We're going to go and whip up some cold water that we're going to add to the about 3.5 to 4 gallons of hot water, just so it brings the temperature of the entire mixture kind of down so we can work with it a little better. I do have a primary fermenter that we're going to go ahead and pour this mixture into so that we can start mixing in our ingredients. So we'll start with about 6.4 pounds of sugar that I just mixed in, which is now I'm stirring it. And we see that our hydrometer level is now, I'd say a little below 6 or 7. So I decided to go ahead and add some more sugar. And this is from the honey that we harvested in 2018. And so we'll see that mixing in this sugar ends up bringing the alcohol content or potential alcohol content to about 9.3%. So we'll go ahead and add our acid blend, which is going to help with the fermentation. Pectic enzyme is going to help break down any pectic haze that might exist after bottling or during fermentation. Tannins is also going to help with clarification of the wine after it starts aging. I really like the pattern. It kind of looks like a spiral galaxy in a way. It was really pretty. But anyway, so we're going to start stirring everything in real nice. So the last ingredient that we're going to add is Camden tablets, which is going to help kill off any wild yeast that exists in this mixture right now, which will give us a really nice base to start with whenever we add our yeast in about 24 hours. So we're going to mix everything up real good one last time, and then go ahead and cap it and just store it overnight, or I guess for 24 hours. So we're going to use some white wine yeast. You'll see on the back that there's some instructions on how to get it started and how you want to add it to your mixture. So we're going to use about 83 degree water and just pour it out and mix it in there really well. This will help get most of the yeast dissolved and really mixed into your wine pretty well, or your must really well. So we're just going to add it, and of course we're going to stir it in really well. And so I stirred it for about a minute just to get it all mixed really well, and then cap it. And we're going to let it sit for another 24 hours. We'll see that the process has started. We have some CO2 buildup. I'm going to give it one last stir just to make sure everything is mixed well. And we'll come back after about a week and see that the alcohol content has increased and the sugar content has decreased. We'll see that we're right above zero. we're gonna put the cap back on and kind of just forget about it for about a month. And after coming back from a month, we'll start sanitizing all of our gear. I use Star San, and of course there's a certain amount you need to mix in there, but I do want to mention that you do want to sanitize everything. Even before this time, I was sanitizing everything whenever I was mixing the must and adding all my ingredients. So yep, so now we'll see that it looks really clear, a lot clearer than it did before. We're going to go ahead and rack it into what's called a secondary fermenter or a carboy. I got a time lapse here of that. I'm just using a siphon to get that done. Once we get that racked, it took a little bit off, and I'm just going to test with the hydrometer again to see where we're at. And we'll see that after a month, we're actually right around 0. Actually a little bit below 0, which is going to be really nice to have a dry base wine. Put it back into the secondary fermenter or the carboy and let it sit for another 2 months. So this was my old corker or bottler, and it doesn't really work that well for 5 gallons or 7 gallons of wine. So I decided to borrow my coworker's corker, who is also into winemaking. This one is much more suitable for the amount of wine that we're going to be bottling today. And you can see it just uses a hinge there to drop the cork, push the cork into the bottle. So I went ahead and I went to the brew store and I bought a 24 pack of 375 milliliter bottles, and then a 12 pack of 750 milliliter bottles, your standard wine bottle. And then 2 1-gallon jugs or carboys to put some base in. And then some synthetic corks as well. So what we have to work with is 5 gallons worth of dry apricot wine. And then I actually had 2 separate gallons from the same batch of cider that I've been working on and have been aging for a while as well. So we're going to actually try to find some way to make a blend out of all this. And we'll actually end up with 4 separate flavors of wine. So on the left we have the dry apricot wine. On the far right we have the standalone cider. And in the middle we actually have a blend of each. There's a 4th cup here, which is going to end up being the sweet apricot that we make. So this is the blend, which actually ended up being right above 1. So it's just a little bit sweet, but not too sweet. And this is the dry apricot. And this one ended up being quite a bit below 1. So this is going to be very dry. So we're going to start with 1 gallon of the apricot. And I think what we'll do is a half and half. We'll mix 1 gallon of the dry apricot and then 1 gallon of the cider. So that'll end up putting us at about 2 gallons of the blended. So the very important step is going to be adding the potassium sorbate, which is going to help prevent renewed fermentation for wines that are sweetened or that are more sweet, that have more sugar content. So anyways, I added that, and now we're actually going to start bottling the blend that is the apricot and the cider. It's a half and half. So once we're done with the blend, we're going to start mixing up the sugar or simple syrup that we'll add to sweeten the dry apricot. And I think we ended up doing maybe a gallon or 2 of the dry to make it sweet. So now we'll actually start corking everything. So I like to disinfect the corks before I do this, so that I don't have anything weird getting in there and staying inside the bottle. As you can see, just push the lever down and then boom, puts the cork in there. So yeah, we ended up with 4 flavors. We have the cider, which is very sweet. We have a blend of cider and apricot, which is just a little sweet, not too sweet though, definitely not a dessert wine. And then the sweetened apricot, which again is not too sweet, it's just right. And then of course the very dry apricot wine base. So yeah, this ended up being about 7 gallons. So I'm really looking forward to bringing some of this to family functions and holiday parties, and also maybe gifting it out or using it to barter with. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the outro, which is just a little snippet of some of the ongoings of honey extraction from the 2019 season.
Mm.